No, I don't live in my vehicle, although at times it may seem like that because I'm constantly making videos in this car. People have asked me why I make videos in my vehicle, because I like it. And due to the fact that this is my channel, I can do whatever I want. I can make videos in elevators, cars, you know, in puddles. It doesn't matter. I'll do what I want to do. And people seem to like to think it's odd that I make videos in my car. That it's like, make your own fucking channel if you are this grand channel critiquer. Anyone with an ounce of wisdom in his heart, his or her heart, knows that the message is what matters, not the appearance of the message. So anyways, I didn't want to rant about that. I wanted to share a profound story that, although it happened many years ago, it feels like it happened yesterday due to how vivid and supernaturally jaw-dropping this experiences that I'm going to tell you about. To begin, I wanted to talk about crystals and what can be done with crystals if an individual either gets lucky or undertakes a lengthy period of practice where he or she learns how to gaze into a crystal to receive images and visions from a crystal. And that's why, you know, you see the classical, or you see psychics often depicted with a crystal ball and fucking bug in here. That's due to the fact that a person who can learn to gaze into a crystal ball without blinking for a prolonged period, if you gaze into a crystal, the milky striations of quartz or amethyst and the different lines and impressions in the quartz actually begin to change shape, and you begin to receive images and visions. This is a very real thing. I know it may sound crazy, but you know, the power of crystals is very, very deep. And these crystals do contain the memory of Earth, things of the present, the future, and the past. So to me, they're like little memory cards of the Earth, these little pieces of crystal. And I mean, holy shit, you can see some pretty crazy things with crystals. I'm going to tell you about this story right now that my brother and I, you know, it happened to us. I believe it was in my late teens, because right when I got out of high school, I was getting really into crystals and things of that nature. So I went onto eBay, found a crystal kit for all the chakras. It had 7 bags, and each bag had a different color, and within each bag there were 3 or 4 stones pertaining to each chakra. So I opened all the bags and looked at them and kind of just scanned through them when I got them. It was a beautiful set, a lot of really, really nice crystals for the price. I think it was like $30. And one crystal spoke out the most to me, and that was one of the crystals for the crown chakra. It was a little piece of clear quartz that resembled a brain. It was uncanny how much this crystal looked like a brain. It had a rear portion in the back that resembled a cerebellum. It had 2 divisions on top, the right and left lobes of the brain. It was completely structured like a brain, and what was really interesting that I found out is that if I went out into the sunlight, or if I was in my room with the light on, if I held the crystal just right, there was a perfect circle, a holographic disc, a rainbow colored disc right in the center of the head, which appeared to be the pineal gland. You know, it even had a little rear portion that looked like a brain stem. Just very, very interesting. Everyone that I showed it to was like, "Damn, dude, that looks like a brain," without even having to tell them. So the appearance was absolutely spot on. Looked just like a brain. But I'm ranting. Let's get to the bulk of this little story. My brother and I one night went into his room, and he had a little LED flashlight. I took the LED flashlight, turned it on, and rested it on its base. So the light was projecting up into the dark room that we were in. And I took this crystal, put it right on top of the LED flashlight, and the whole thing illuminated. suddenly you could see all the little striations that looked like galaxies and all the different lines and milky different colors in this clear piece of quartz. What was also interesting, before I start this, about the fact that it looked like a head was the fact that it was in the bag for the crown chakra, which is related to the head. But again, we turned the light on and we were just jaw-dropped at how beautiful this gem was. There was rainbows in it, which is a classic thing that you'll see in clear quartz, even amethyst, rose quartz, you name it. Holographic little discs. So we just sat there looking at it for a good 2 minutes. And all of a sudden, we noticed some things happening within the crystal. And I nudged my brother's arm, and I looked over at him, and he looked hypnotized almost, just staring into this crystal. So I looked back at it, and I said, "Dude, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And he nodded his head and said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And I said, "What are you seeing?" "I'm seeing tanks and people running around, cities being decimated, rockets going off." We were looking at, in my opinion, a vision of the potential future. And it was not a pretty sight. There was just scorched earth, tanks running over cars and shit. And it was just amazing how clear we could see all this shit. And yes, we were straight, no drugs involved, none of that. And again, it may sound crazy to people that you can see things like this in crystals, but again, these are people that have no supernatural, they've never delved into practicing the art of scrying, and the art of scrying is the art of gazing into crystals to receive visions. So Edgar Cayce was privy to the fact that crystals harbored memory of the earth and potential outcomes of the future. Excuse me, my nose itches. Many people have been onto this. Madame Blavatsky, Crowley, just so many people, occultists of the past, have tapped into the power of crystals. And if you do it properly, you will see visions. But often, they're not very pretty. So, you know, to this day, we both talk about it, and we're both shocked at just what we saw. It went on for a good 5 minutes before we kind of snapped ourselves out of it. We kind of had to pull ourselves away from the crystal. It was grabbing our attention. And we still talk about it often. It was very, very vivid what we saw. It wasn't just, you know, something in our minds. No. We both saw the same things, and as we watched it, we talked about the things we saw to validate and verify the fact that we were seeing the same things. So I do have a witness. I've experienced scrying visions on just a handful of occasions with crystals. I've seen images and visions of the pyramids of Giza, the Sphinx, different constellations, galaxies. What was interesting too was about 2 months later, after this vision my brother and I had, I was sitting in my room at about 5 in the morning next to the window, looking at the moon as the sun began to kind of creep into the picture. And I held the crystal up, and some of the moonlight hit it. It was very profound because I could see clearly into the crystal. Excuse me, Jesus Christ. And just had a major brain fart. What I saw was profound. I saw hundreds of thousands of souls leaving the earth in their Merkabas, their light body vehicles. So to me, the message that the crystal gave me was that there might be a huge war and Armageddon here on earth, but that the righteous people may or may not be taken somewhere else to a new earth in their Merkabas. And that makes perfect sense to me because this is a teleportation device. It is literally a vehicle that we can move around the physical dimension with. It is a spaceship. This body is a spaceship to a large extent. This body is a war weapon to a large extent, and you're not going to know that until you experience Kundalini. Kundalini, people may say, oh, it's all blissful, it's all this and that. You become a Buddha and all this other New Age garbage. You become a war weapon. You become the child of Mars. You become the emperor of the planetary spheres. You begin to see the reality of the angels. You begin to see the different hierarchies of the angels, the ministers, the princes, the kings. the different classifications of angels. For people who are interested in delving more into the angelic realm, I do recommend looking into Dr. John Dee's system of Enochian angel magic, which is the art of scrying, gazing into a reflective surface, to receive visions from the different planetary spheres, the planetary lords, the ministers, the heptarchia of the Enochian system. And you know, that's a study that you could study the Enochian system for the rest of your life and learn just so it's incredibly detailed and advanced, how beautiful that system is, how mysterious it is. It essentially is a method of sorcery. You can kind of consider it a form of shamanism, for invoking the angelic energies that govern the creation of this universe. So another really interesting thing about the Enochian angels is that the Enochian angels and Kundalini go hand in hand. And proof of that was when I had my first full-blown Kundalini awakening after holding a particular yoga asana for a prolonged period while in a state of self-induced hypnosis. I was allowed to see into the aethers and into the dimensions around me, and I was visited by the Enochian angels. And in one of the quadrants of my room that I experienced this experience in, the eastern wall meeting with the wall of the southern quadrant. Excuse me. I think I may have said the wrong thing, but I don't give a shit about the quarters of the room. In that particular corner, about 5 feet up there, floating was probably a 2 foot wide sigillum dea meth, an etheric, astral, hyperdimensional sigillum dea meth that was just floating in the air as I experienced the Kundalini awakening. And that is the true seal of God. Studying the sigillum dea meth, which is a symbol, it's the grand seal of the Enochian system of Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly, which was formulated and given to them by the Enochian angels in the 1500s. And you know, Dr. John Dee was a philosopher. He was a mathematician. He was an astrologer. He was a undercover spy at a particular time. He was a genius, an alchemist. He was a well-rounded Renaissance man, to say the least. And you know, he understood the Kabbalah. Just incredible how intelligent that man was. But Dr. John Dee began working with Edward Kelly, also known as Edward Talbot, in the 1500s. Edward Kelly was an alchemist. He was kind of an eccentric man, kind of viewed as being a little out there and crazy by the public, but he was a master scryer. He could put himself into self-induced hypnosis and receive visions from the crystals and the shoe stone that they used, the reflective surfaces, very well. And over a period of many years, Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly received many visions within the ritual room that they had set up for invoking and evoking to physical form the Enochian angels. But it's amazing. This system of sorcery can be used to create change on the earth by using the Watchtower tablets and invoking the angels of the aethers. And if you think that this is just something that these two men made up, that you don't know what you're talking about, because this is a very real thing. My Kundalini awakening and many Kundalini awakenings have proven the reality of the Enochian angels. And just to look at some of the manuscripts and the journals that these two men put together, particularly John Dee, you'll be amazed at the degree of intelligence that these two men harbored. Dee was the genius in terms of you know, writing and being a philosopher and things of that nature. But Edward Kelly was just a master scryer. He became a very well-known alchemist, especially when him and John Dee ended up splitting and going their ways. Kelly became very famous after him and John Dee split up. But this system of Enochian magic is incredibly real. It is brilliant. The Enochian alphabet has its own syntax. It is, I mean, incredibly beautiful, this system. And anyways, I'm ranting. But yes, if you want to learn more about what I'm talking about, many people may or may not know what I'm talking about. But you can look into the Enochian system of angel magic. There's so much information out there. It is a very cryptic system. It's not something that is easy to study per se, because there's so many different intricacies within this system. The different heptarchic classifications and hierarchies, and the 7 kings and rulers, and the ministers, the children of light, or the sons and daughters of light, the princes again. They all had very beautiful names too, these angels, such as Blisden and Hornago. I'm not going to go into it, man. There's just hundreds of different angels that they worked with within the Shoe Stone. And these angels did predict many different things that have taken place here on Earth years after these messages were received in the 1500s. But I just found it so interesting after studying the Enochian system of Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly prior to my Kundalini awakening, when I did have my first full-blown Kundalini awakening, when the ball python in my room performed Shaktipat on my chakra system and my meridians after holding a particular yoga asana, I was allowed to see what reality is truly like, with the schism of the right and left lobes of the brain removed, and I began to see with my female and male brain. I became the androgynous system, I became the androgynine, the unification of male and female, and that's what happens when Kundalini takes place. And I could see into the aethers. I was visited by the Enochian angels, my ancestors, you name it, and holy shit, the Kundalini awakenings that I've had are highly just riddled with Enochian symbolism and telepathy and things of that nature. So I'm talking about some secrets to a large extent. I know I'm not trying to brag. I'm just telling the truth. If I can't tell the truth, what's the point of having a fucking YouTube channel? That ball python, after holding that particular yoga asana, the Kundalini energy rushed up my spine, completely changed my posture. And I could see what that ball python was doing now, because I was seeing reality with both brains activated. It was actually weaving light at the tip of its tongue and projecting it, these light patterns, into geometric patterns, which were unlocking the different seals that had been put on my chakras. And through that, I was allowed to have the Kundalini energy move through me, because the seals were removed. And those seals are put on us through sorcery and dreams, through our own actions, through hypnosis here in the physical dimension, different radio wave frequency technologies that are being used by the evil forces to keep the Kundalini energy from moving up the spinal system and enlightening mankind. But an interesting thing too about when a snake performs Shaktipat, and Shaktipat is the activation of Kundalini. Every time this has happened to me, the reproductive organ of the snake comes out of the flap near its tail and begins to vibrate and shake and oscillate and produce light. So when a snake does perform Shaktipat, at least it's been in my own personal experience, it opens the flap of its reproductive organ, the little bay that it sits in, and it begins to vibrate and create energy that it moves through its system and shoots out of the tip of its tongue. This video is going to cut off at 20 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up. On behalf of the Sacred Starseed Serpent Uraeus YouTube channel, thank you for watching this video, and I hope that this video can help you do something positive today. I hope that this video can make you think a little bit deeper than you currently are. Peace be motherfucking with you, bitches.